أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم صدق الله العلي العظيم.
I thought as we wrap up our course, we should have this. We have said many times that knowledge is in history, right? In the full time function. And who has knowledge of the full history? Only Allah. And it is actually here. We get the idea. Only one we can depend on for full history, full time function is Allah. So no matter what you go, what we are looking for, if you want knowledge, scientifically, it has to be coming from Allah. What are Allah's communication technique with us? Quran. Quran literally means the collection of deductive logic. And whatever we see, towards evident. Ayah of Allah, there is visible ayah and readable, so-called readable ayah. So, in conclusion, anytime you have a problem, start with Quran. Start with dua. Because He holds everything. There is no knowledge otherwise. So right away, we get into what is a research question. You do not have a research question if you do not have a problem. If somebody is lecturing you, I have this research question, it's complete BS, because it's not yours. You don't have a problem. Then they create the problem for you. Say, because I'm giving you money, you answer my research question. That's not yours. Question has to be from you. So if you have a problem, you see, a director tells you that we have a problem. That's your problem. You solve it. You cannot pay money to produce your own children. You have to work for it. So you have to really understand that unless you are convinced that that's a problem that you are vested in, you are seriously interested in, you cannot do research. Research is not a contract work. You cannot give somebody the work to do research for you. The person has to be married to the concept that this is a real problem. I want to solve it. Only then you qualify. Not many people understand this.
But so nowadays research for all countries, isn't it?
Research is now has become anything but research. But in the West at least, the research is done by the people who proposed. Have you proposed anything? The problem research, that so-called research that you're working on, did you propose that?
What they call proposals, so they include the problem in the proposal?
They only include the problem. And you write the proposal that I am so interested in this that you give me $1 million. We have done that many times. And I'll show you the solution. Why am I writing? Because I'm interested. It's not just about money. I'm interested in solving this. That's how they qualify. That we are going to give $1 million to Sanabul because his proposal really shows that he's interested in solving it. It's not a contract.
Good.
You cannot hire somebody from Pakistan and Iran and China to solve your problem. It doesn't work that way. You have to be involved right from the beginning. So only thing that state or party should be interested in, I have a problem. Who can solve this? And you have to say, why am I going to solve? Just for money? Then that's not the right idea. You are really interested in solving this because this is a real problem that affects everybody. And that's why I say the most important question, research question, is what will Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would do? Does anybody in the world ask that question first? You see how unique we are? Nobody asks that question.
Yeah.
Even Muslims don't.
No, really.
So this is why it's very unique approach we are talking about. From the beginning I said the most important research question is what will Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do under today's condition? How would he address this problem? If that's not your question, it's a Bani Israel question. There is nothing in between. And Bani Israel question will increase your ignorance. Real question will decrease your remedy your ignorance. Completely opposite.
Yes, sir, one of the things I have heard is that finding the problem is also type of, it's not an easy task.
Of course not. That's what I'm saying. You have to be really interested. Otherwise you have no problem. So most of the time, we trust our leaders to find the problem. But leaders don't have a problem. They're doing fine. No leader is suffering from anything. So what do they do? Why do they do anything? Why do they create problem and say solve this? Because their own existence is attacked. Like today, Donald Trump said he's going to open the Alcatraz, the big prison, because he feels that his dominion, his power is under attack. So for him, the research problem is how to open this prison. So when the leaders give you the problem, you have nothing in it. Only thing you have is I can make some money. See, it's wrong-headed. So leaders should identify problem and say, look, this is a problem for all of us. You give your life and I will make sure that your ilm is rewarded. Not your manual labor, because manual labor everybody can do. Ilm is what? New knowledge. And new knowledge is research. So if you are working for an engineering project, no way, I can tell you right now, if you are working on an engineering project, no way you can succeed beyond China or US. Nobody. Maximum you can do is as good as theirs. But by the time you have gone there, they are already way ahead somewhere else. So that's not the way. So I have this little research question. If you look it up, what is the most important research question about Quran? Believe it or not, they say, what is the meaning of the word Quran? Literally, that was given out as the most searched question and answer. And what is the answer? It means, Quran means whatever is read. You see the point? Why am I calling dogmatic answer? What does reading mean? I'm reading this, right? It says Sanagul. It means nothing. But I'm telling you, I can read your mind, Sanagul. That's research. That's Ikra. That's the logic. You see the difference? Reading a book, reciting it, is the dogmatic meaning. I can read the mind, or I can read the environment, whatever is going on. understand what is going on. That's Iqra. Iqra does not mean reading like dogmatic meaning. So everywhere you'll find there's two meaning always. The dogmatic meaning, apparent meaning, external meaning, easy meaning, and another one is deductive logic.
So Iqra means, even
Using deductive
if
logic.
you didn't read with tone, you're just
Yes.
visualizing and analyzing.
Thinking.
Yeah,
That's what
thinking.
I said. Thinking process. And that's what you look at even Western philosophy, even Western books. Thinking, ability to think makes us distinct. We say we are distinct species because we are Khalifa of Allah, right? But even in Western culture, we are distinct because we can think. The word Homo sapiens means, you know what it means? The group that thinks.
Mm.
That's what makes us unique.
Sir, like nowadays, I'm just going to ask a short question. Nowadays, we are surrounded by, this floods of information. Actually, people, have become to think, rarely.
Yeah.
So, at most, they are just, they are reading and getting the concepts,
No time to think.
Yeah.
And that's what's coming up next. No time to think, and that's why we would be replaced by computers, by robots, because they can do much faster than we can do anything, including research, so-called research. Only thing we can not be superseded, nobody can exceed us, is real thinking, real Iqra. Artificial, can you ever calculate faster than computer? No way. Even 3-digit multiplication you can do. So apparent meaning, apparent so-called tangible things, we cannot compete. We are the weakest. We humans are the only species, only creation we need help even to deliver babies. Dogs and cats and animals and nobody needs help. Isn't it true? We need help. We cannot even function. We cannot walk and talk, nothing when we are bored. We need help. We are the weakest. And yet Allah is calling us the Khalifa. So Khalifa's biggest strength is the ability to think. Right? The first verse, Surah Baqarah 31, right after Allah declared that I'm going to place Khalifa on earth, right away he says, Allah Madam. He gave science, the ability to process. Ilm truly is research. He gave them the science. And that's why science is the third most used word in Quran. No other book exists in any discipline that uses the word science so frequently. So scientific answer is the collection of deductive logic.
Wonderful.
That's Quran. That's the starting point, deductive logic. Do you know this guy?
Yeah, Reagan.
Television in the car.
Yes, muted. Voice.
Muted.
In the video.
Calm down.
Down.
Muted.
Don't.
Okay.
100 years ago, he said, in the beginning of the empire, the rates were low, the tax rates were low, but the revenue was great. He said, in the end of the empire, when the empire was collapsed,
From the beginning,
the
sir?
rates
the
were
line
great
beginning?
and the revenue was
You
low.
missed some part.
Okay.
I studied economics in college when I was young, and I learned there about a man named Ibn Khaldun, who lived 1,200 years ago in Egypt. And 1,200 years ago, he said, in the beginning of the empire, the rates were low, the tax rates were low, but the revenue was great. He said, in the end of the empire, when the empire was collapsing, the rates were great and the revenue was low.
Did you understand the third theme? He's talking about Ibn Khaldun, and Ibn Khaldun said, when empire flourishes, taxes are low.
Yeah.
And when empire collapses, taxes are
Tax
high,
is high.
but they're collapsing. The finance is terrible. Where did Ibn Khaldun get the idea? It was not in Khulafa Rashidin. He's talking about regular empire. It's true, the best empire was Khulafa Rashidin.
Yeah.
And Khulafa Rashidin did not call us because of the policy. It called us because of fitna. But every empire collapses when they increase taxes. Completely deductive logic. He did not collect evidence. He did not say Alexander the Great increased the taxes, they collapsed. It's purely from deductive logic. You know what deductive logic that is? When you're disconnected from your people that you're governing, that's where your demise comes. That's why Hassan Basri is very angry at the fake caliphs. Because you're totally disconnected from people. They were imposing tax, jizya, on Muslims, even though they converted to Islam. So your disconnection from people will bring you down in dunya and akhirah both. So this is the value of deductive logic. 1200 years later, it was the president of Big Shaitan is quoting him. It's making sense. So think of that. This is the kind of contribution you should make. And it doesn't come from Western philosophy. It comes from Islam.
Sir, for example, if you consider the case of Islamic Emirate, when it
Yes.
took over Kabul and Afghanistan, so hundreds of thousands employees were there.
Yes.
I mean, they have no resources. So if they didn't get taxes and dues like for passport, tazkira and all those things,
Yeah.
from money is coming from different channels, and somehow it's imposed on the people and the nation.
Yeah.
So how they could survive? How
You
the
see-
government, Islamic?
How, see, this is what it is. Where does the resource come from in Islam? It purely comes from Islam, from Allah. Okay, that's deductive logic. Okay, but the fact also is, Emirate became the Afghani became the most powerful currency during the same time. So what are the mistakes? Started to think that you increase tax. Silly things. Is tax on hotel allowed Islamically? Tax on property, is it allowed other than zakat? Tax on your house, is it allowed?
Yeah, even among the among the people who are currently employed by Islamic Emirate,
Well,
they say that taxes. Like there is a great scholar by the name of Hamasi.
yeah.
He said before that the collapse of the previous government, he was saying that it's haram in Islam, but now they are doing it and consider it type of some excuse.
You see, people do not, this is why people do not do research, they try to copy or whatever. I give a simple example. Do you know, from Turkey, when you come here, if you are born in Turkey, you are Turkish citizen, you do not need visa. If you are Turkish citizen, born somewhere else, like my daughter and my son, they are born in in Canada, like myself, but Turkish citizen. We need visa. It's violation of international law, let alone Islamic law. Because once you are a Turkish citizen, you are a citizen. You cannot discriminate. In Turkey, we can vote. We have every right as much as those who were born there, but not here. So where is the logic coming from? Not from Islam. Same with Pakistan. Pakistan, I was only talking last week. Son and father applies for visa. Son says, born in Australia, think about it, born in Australia, you don't need visa. But the son, father born in Afghanistan, but he's also Australian, he needs visa. So they give visa to the child, you can go, but not to the father. Where is the logic? That's Pakistan. So always find out there is a root of any problem. We did not look into Quran and Hadith. We looked into some Western philosophy. Somebody taught us nonsense. It's the same for every tax, for every policy, for every rule. Do you know in this country they learn Ottoman Empire's laws? Did you know that? Ottoman Empire, they are the most corrupt. And you're studying their law, thinking it's fiqh. So problem is, by doing that, you're falling in dunya, you're falling in akhirah. All I'm saying that go back to Islam, you'll flourish in dunya like anything else, and akhirah is secure, even if you die. So repeatedly, this is the point I'm trying to make. You want to excel in dunya, let's excel in dunya. It's not a problem. And that's why I always talk about, didn't I always talk about Nobel laureates? Is there any better than that in dunya?
Yes.
All of them, you will find out, they started with some deductive logic. All of them. And we have an example here. Only guy who got 2 Nobel Prizes in same subject, in physics. What is it first? Transistor. 1956. 1972 he gets explanation of superconductivity. Did he invent anything? No, he invented the principle. It's deductive logic. We don't do that. We always pay so you can find a gadget. Find me something that flies, then I'm very happy. But this is Nobel Prize. There is nothing better than that. So all I'm saying, you go back, see what they're doing, and attack their first premise and say, he found that from where? Where did he get the transistor idea? I want to find that from Quran and Hadith and from looking at the nature. And my transistor would be sustainable. That's all. Mark Zuckerberg very recently said, in 18 months, the coding, software programming, we take so much pride that, mashallah, he's in computer programming. Isn't it something we take pride? We write programs.
Yeah, he said that all intermediate level employees will be replaced by the
Right.
software designers.
So, what do? You become obsolete. You have no purpose. You can be replaced tomorrow. That's why I'm saying, if you want your engineers to work for design, subhanallah, buy software package. Buy AI. You don't need Sanagul there. You don't need Tasal. It's a waste of time of Sanagul and Tasal and Zahir and everybody. Hikmatullah. They are not machines. They don't want to be machine. And they can never be better than machine. So buy machine, man. Do not waste Khalifa's time. Khalifa has better thing to do. So this is how repeatedly I said, the most important research question is how to think like the Prophet. Right? And that's the basis of this university. You have seen the site. I posted several times. So that part is done. We're completing that part. For 4 months, we have been doing this all I'm teaching you, 4 months, how to think. That's all. How to think like Prophet. Because that's our job.
Exactly.
So now, what is the next most important question for Afghanistan? I sum it up. It's not just for Afghanistan, for the whole Ummah. Gaza, even now they are bombing northeast of Syria. That would not happen if Ummah had air superiority. Ummah is sitting on a bomb, but that means nothing. Nuclear bomb means nothing. We need to control the air. And none of them has it. So literally, most important question after how to think is how to control the air. Like Sulaiman has. How to control. Right away, then sub questions arise. How do you bring down these objects flying around, bombing us, shooting from them? Then solution starts to come. You can jamming enemy radar communication. You can use ground-based air defenses. You can shoot them down. You can even use Eagle or whatever. Those guys are doing those. But the idea is not to copy anybody else. Find out what we can do from Quran Hadith and from observing nature. Those two ayah, readable ayah and visible ayah. Jamming technology, you're quite familiar with that. You use the transmitter and tune it to certain frequency that disturbs the receiver of the drones, of the object flying. So they lose communication as well as control. If you do that with artificial, that's still better than anybody else. But if you do that with natural, that's unprecedented. Right away, it's very easy. There is existing technology. People have that. In this particular case, the range is 10 kilometers. So you can fall for it and say, my only task is to get that reproduced cheap. Is that research? No, that's nothing. He said, remember, it has to be new knowledge. What new knowledge did you add? Oh, America is selling for 10 million, I'm going to buy from China for 1 million. That's not research. That's procurement officer. Somebody who purchasing officer. That's not research. So they are all available. So all you have to do is go in there and transform artificial to natural. So they are doing this, I'm going to do naturally. And that's my research job. Same way with shooting down drones. Again, it comes to this shooting down, it comes to a radar so you can locate, and a cannon, literally a gun. We talked about how we can make guns halal, right? We talked about Rahman 35, remember that? With copper. So that kind of thing will come now. This is an example of deductive logic. This is an example for Quran, that we can use that. They're using this, I'm going to use copper. And I'll make that copper sustainable, meaning produced with real fire. Boom, right away you have a technology nobody else has. You're far superior. They will come to you, how did you manage? And you sell your knowledge for a very high price. So literally it's for everything. Now another one, laser. I know we talked about it. How do you turn that laser into natural? Better than anybody else's. Why natural? Because that's the only sustainable one. There came a very important topic. Those interested in modeling, we talked about it. Modeling energy spectrum. See, modeling is what? Deductive logic. And there is room. This was originally inspired by my son's. He got an award for this. He's a computer scientist and physicist, and his task was exactly that. Nobody since Einstein, Bose-Einstein, did anything about it, but they were flawed. So his proposal was to change that to assumption of proton having zero mass, but neutrino having mass. Remember that? He eliminated that anomaly. So if neutrino has mass, so what happened to photon? If you remedy that, you can find one equation that describes both mass as well as energy. It doesn't exist. So much so that, see, there's a Nobel Prize given, 2021. Last sentence. You see, they got Nobel Prize for describing interplay and fluctuation in physical system from atomic to planetary scales. They did not include photon. They did not include neutrino. Right away, my son, when he wrote the proposal, he was what? 19-year-old. And there's Nobel Prize on the same subject, much less. So this is what I'm talking about. It's very easy. You just have to get rid of the bias or the fascination for the West. He said, doesn't matter if I go Nobel Prize, but have they answered the questions? They have not. And you come up with something that's completely new. Very recently, you see, we talk about everybody's up in arms for nuclear, right? There is China just did it, just like last week's news. Have you seen this? They gained 15 times more, 15 times longer blast. You see, in a real case with TNT, for instance, it's fraction of a second. With them, the blast lasted 2 seconds, which is 15 times longer than how you get with TNT. Temperature reaching 1000 Celsius in that 2 seconds. It reaches the height, which is the intensity of nuclear bomb. Yet, it has no nuclear. So where did the idea come from? They simply used magnesium hydride. And the writers say, oh, let me Google the magnesium hydride thing, Chinese have done it, I'm going to do it. That's not the idea. You have to say, they did it, maybe I can find better. They did it like a bomb, I want to do it like a gun. Imagine that. That would be like a laser gun. Very intense. But it is very simple. You simply have a gunpowder, which is like having TNT. And that would be a cannon that would shoot down the aircraft very easily. So we have to be creative. We have to think, whatever is available, we'll do better. But you cannot ever start by saying that I'm going to copy what China is doing. Perhaps I'll buy one and try to make it better. So this is the magnesium hydride. Right away, you can see that they have described the dogma way, right? But in reality, magnesium hydride, the main purpose is lot of hydrogen is packed, huge amount of hydrogen, and hydrogen is a very good fuel. Talk about TNT and everything else. Hydrogen is the most potent fuel. But the idea came to Chinese, and we were Muslims sitting here. Shouldn't have better idea. So now comes another challenge. How do you make them light? And we talked about it 2 days ago. We said there are all kind of materials that are very light. So right away you think, well, they are doing fine. So right away you can think, maybe I'll do naturally, right? But keep in mind, the process has to be also natural, right? If they made light by injecting air, that's not how nature creates materials. You know that. So you have to see the process, how you can emulate that. I don't know that right now, but if you study, if you try to think more, you'll come up with something that nobody has used. So at the same time, you want to have a strong material, light and strong. What is the advantage of strong?
To resist loads. And
That's right. Nobody can shoot it down. You don't want soft. Right? Birds are very light, but they can be shot down. But they're available right now. There are a lot of materials available. So what is the interesting feature of those? They are all artificial. If I ask you, what is the strongest material per cross section, per mass,
Diamond.
per mass?
Or mass.
You know what it is? Spider web. It's unbelievable. You know how I found out? Because the West found out doing research. That's why they started to take genetically modified spider webs to make bulletproof vests. That is 20 years ago. We do not do research. Bad guys do. So they found out spider web is the strongest material. And we are sitting here reading Ankabut. Isn't it true? We are reading Ankabut and we have no idea. So what are you talking about? Spider web is so flimsy. Similarly, today the strongest material is considered to be air graphene. Graphene is the one that 2005 onward, I think several Nobel Prize was given. Totally artificially made, but originally inspired by diamond structure. It's carbon, but altered in such a way it becomes stronger, strongest actually.
Now we are using carbon fiber.
That's right. So this one is the lightest material now. Where it comes from? Carbon. And it is, can you imagine? It's 7.5 times less dense than air. How is it possible? Bad guys made it. So do we not think that Allah has given something even better? We just have to look. Another very important topic is sustainable fuel. We talked about it a lot. My whole book, it was 2010, was dedicated to finding natural techniques to refine. We talked about Arabs used to refine. I believe even in Prophet's time they were refining. You remember in Prophet's time they were having lamps. That's not kerosene. Can you, if you put olive oil in a lamp, you cannot possibly burn it. Have you tried? I have. It doesn't last. The little wick burns out because it's too thick. See, it has to be refined. But in Prophet's time, don't you hear that there was a lamp? Do you not? You know that, right? They had a lamp. What happened to that lamp? It was not kerosene. It was not gasoline or diesel. That technique we have to revive. And I have done that work, about 800 pages, various materials that you can use tomorrow to refine your oil.
In the movie we see they take a wood of, and then the top of the wood there is something burning.
Yes.
I
What is
think
that?
it was like that. It can be cotton.
Yeah, cotton will burn up right away.
Oh.
So there is the oil supply. They soak in oil, and that lasts. You know, in old days they used to have wick. They do that with kerosene, right? You know the kerosene things.
Yes.
Yeah,
Little
Big
wick.
fuck.
Wick doesn't burn up because it has constant flow of oil. But that oil used to be kerosene.
around 20 years ago, we
Yes.
had,
Yes.
we didn't have electricity
Well,
in the countryside.
but they were using kerosene.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, this is the point. I went and found in Libya, several hundred years old. I saw it in a museum. I said, what oil they were using? Then the old guy reminded me, told me that they used to use rice husk, the coating of rice, and wheat husk, the outside. Why is that? Because that has the heavy metals. What do they do in refinery? They use platinum, they use lead, all these heavy metals, right? They use cadmium, but they use the so-called purified, which is toxic. So you use the natural one that the old time they used to use. We have naturally processed. It will not be harmful. And that topic will make you a little tomorrow. Everybody is complaining about global warming and all this. That will not happen because that carbon dioxide will go right back to the nature. Plants will use that to produce carbohydrate. Then we have sustainable iron, copper, lithium, to have in engines, guns, batteries, gadgets. Right away, nobody else has. Today, nobody has those. Because everybody is using the artificial technique. So start tomorrow, and you sell organic gold, organic iron, organic copper. You become the world leader. Lithium is the most important one because Afghanistan has the most lithium in the world. But what are they thinking? They're thinking of giving the contract to China so you can make 10%. Remember what I said? Don't sell for Saman and Kalila. It's very little. That's what Saman and Kalila is. You're giving away your resource for 10%. Right away, it can make 1,000 times profit. 1,000, literally. So, that sums up today's talk. If you have a question, please ask. I'm still collecting questions. Please do that because those who have given the questions is wonderful. Don't be shy. It doesn't have to be whatever your project you are doing. You can have an idea, you can ask, I want to solve this problem. On Wednesday, I'll talk about medical science. Because that's really important. After national defense, your personal defense is very important.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, personal defense is more important than national defense. Because who cares? Bombs are not flowing right now, but I'm suffering physically. I want to keep getting through. So I thought last class should be dedicated to health issues. And I'll make it very simple. All my talks, you might have noticed, are simple. Even a child can understand.
Inshallah.
So I'll do that. And again, bring your questions. I'll follow up with you, even if it means getting funding from some external bodies. Right? We try from locally, but if locally they are not convinced, which is a possibility, then we'll get funding from outside. Many people are dying to contribute, but they don't know what to contribute. They don't want to give you money so you can copy and paste Chinese inventions. If you tell them, my son is going to give a speech tomorrow to the investors. If you tell them, this is what we are doing, my goodness, they would love to contribute. So don't be shy, give your questions, don't worry about how it will be solved. We'll be with you, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
So shall I start it?
Jazakallah.